So what I'll be saying will be in relation to the Nazareth University Foundation Year Programme, NUFIT. This programme has been running for 14 years, first 5 years with University College London. 4 years ago, the programme was accredited by Barley. In the past year, we've had about 600 students. As you can imagine, it's that bridge year between the last year of high school or secondary school, first year undergraduate or freshman. So this is my overview, which I've put in 3 sections. So first of all, aim, thesis, arguments, and background. Okay, and then some examples of materials. Now we have fine core materials. These materials are called ancillary materials. So journal articles, that's right, journal articles, research skills, paraphrasing, referencing, vocabulary, and then we go on to note-taking presentations, and then finally references, conclusion, and Q's and A's. So starting my aim, so I'll use Dornier's definition of student engagement, active participation in activities and academic tasks. So my thesis, and I include a couple of reasons there, relevance and variety. So going on to my arguments, I have 4 arguments. So first of all, relevance. So relevance of topics and their link to assessment. Secondly, variety of materials and activities. Third, what I call tools. By that I mean furniture and technology. So some of us, we like to have groups of 4 students sitting together, facing each other, and obviously their laptop or their tablet. And style. By style, I mean in relation to teaching, I have 3 assumptions. So firstly, you have your own style. Secondly, that your style is evolving. And third, that your style does not need to be the same as everyone else's style. And if we try and link teaching style with maintaining student engagement, and we try and compare that to a journey to a city for a purpose. So for example, if we were traveling to Varanasi to washing the Ganga, then there are many different routes to get to that city for that purpose. So 4 background points, particularly of those who are not familiar with our programme. So skills, tasks, skills, tasks, so yes, knowledge and content. So skills, obviously paraphrasing, note-taking, for example. Tasks, so in our situation here, a research project in 3 stages. Knowledge, I would include the academic word list, those 570 keywords in some 10 sublists. By content, this will differ from each student according to their RP title, but they don't need to memorize the content. So going on to my first example in relation to journal articles, and the 2 variables to bear in mind here. First is background knowledge, and second is task complexity. So Umek, in her UCL PhD completed last year, in her conclusion, she contends that background knowledge is important to help second language learners in accessing their understanding of the text. And whoops, just go back one. Brele, in her book Reading Skills, published over 40 years ago, she made the contention that the complexity of the text is unimportant. What is important is the complexity of the tasks used to relate to that text. So an example from the journal Water, published earlier this year, about a river in the north of Kazakhstan. And it helps if such articles are well illustrated. So this is a map of the Irtysh, running from the southeast to the northwest, passing through the cities of Oskamen, Semey, and Pavlodar, from which some of our students come. Also, it helps if they're coloured photographs. So bottom right, you've got the Irtysh last July, and above it, some white flowers which will grow along the banks of that river. So a task which can be used to access this text is a program called Crossword Weaver. And I find about 20 questions seems to work well. So in their groups of 4, they could do just 5 questions each. One of the questions, for example, is about what does the text say about the level of the Irtysh? And the text says the level of the Irtysh is falling. So out of that might come a discussion question. Why do you think the level of the Irtysh is falling? So such activities help to maintain student engagement. So on one half of their laptop, they can have the text, and on the other half, they can have the questions. So in our upcoming roundtable discussion, how do you do journal articles where you work? So going on to research skills, and it's a very simple activity. So keeping the same theme of rivers, brainstorming questions about rivers. So in a Google Doc shared with all the students, so one question might be something like, is there a global organization which monitors the quality of water in rivers? In the middle column, the students type in their answer. In the right-hand column, they put the source where they found the information. Going on to paraphrasing, so using the same text, but linking it with a perusal platform. Perusal was created by, among others, Mazza, a professor of physics at Harvard University, who wanted a platform which his students could access at the same time online for what he called social reading. So in this activity, students either individually or in pairs, they highlight one sentence, then on the right-hand side, they type their paraphrase, and then underneath, the tutor can leave a comment. So for example, well done, Zakra and Minora, for using 3 methods in your paraphrase. So in the upcoming round table discussion, following this session, how do you do paraphrasing where you work? Referencing. So we were in the windy city of Chicago, but we've moved to Washington, DC, and now we use the American Psychological Association edition 7, 2019. And online, there are many different quizzes which help students to practice APA 7. And these help to maintain student engagement. So this is one from Curtin University in Perth, Western Australia, which, as you can see, combines both a tutorial and a quiz. There are about 10 questions. The guideline time is 5 to 10 minutes. At the end of the quiz, they get immediate feedback. According to their score, they can choose whether they want to repeat it or not. Such activities the students can do at their own speed, helps to maintain student engagement. Grammar, so my current favourite is Cambridge Dictionary Plus, which has a huge variety of grammar activities. So this is one on passives. This is a gap fill. So at the end of the sentence, you've got the verb, and the students have to put the right form of the passive in the space. So again, they can do this either individually or in pairs. At the end of the quiz, they get immediate feedback. According to their score, they can decide whether they want to repeat it or go on to the next quiz. Such activities, the students can work at their own speed, and it does help to maintain student engagement. Vocabulary. In Selous, ND, in an informal seminar, claimed that the top students have the best vocabulary. Evidence to support that claim came from Milton and Trevor Starler. Potentially be explained as much by vocabulary size as by academic ability, it would seem. So using the academic word list as an example, and having 3 different activities for students to improve their vocabulary size. So the Ministry of Education here has a trilingual language policy, which is Kazakh, Russian, and English. So in this activity, in the second column, the student types the word in Russian in Cyrillic script, the third column in Kazakh in the Roman script. In the right-hand column, they write a form of the word in a sentence. So for example, the third word, area, the example might be the area of the Republic of Kazakhstan is approximately 2.7 million square kilometers. So we go on to a second activity, practicing the same words, flashcards, created by students for students, having Russian and Kazakh on one side and English on the other side. So 60 cards divided into 15, 4 sets of 15, which are rotated around the 4 groups of 4 students. So they're recycling the same words, but in a different form. The third activity, Kahoot. I think all 10 sublists, they have online Kahoots in the public domain, and however many times one does Kahoot, the students still seem to enjoy them. They get immediate feedback, which helps to maintain student engagement. So note-taking. So particularly in reference to listening, my friend, Professor Grant Ellis, who's not working here now, but he's worked here 3 times. He was a professor of electrical engineering in the School of Engineering and Digital Sciences. He told me his lectures were 2 hours. So how can we help students? Because it's observed that students find note-taking very boring. So Courtney et al. Suggested something called collaborative note-taking. In other words, group note-taking. And one application of this is students in their groups of 4, they have one piece of paper, but it's 2 sides, lined paper, and each student takes notes just for 10 minutes, and then they pass it on to the next student in the group until the end of the lecture. This gives a sense of corporate responsibility because they're writing notes not just for themselves, but for the whole group. So how do you find an appropriate lecture? Preferably they're current, that would be helpful, and also if they're well illustrated. So an example of that was given by Professor Anil Seth, from Sussex University. Last year, he won the Michael Faraday Prize, and this year, he was invited to give the Michael Faraday Prize lecture at the Royal Society in London. His lecture was about 50 minutes, followed by 15 minutes of questions. And he partly based his lecture on his book, Being You. And this was the title of his lecture. So the students have one set of notes, and then here are the questions. I find 20 questions works quite well. Again, the Kahoot format. So if the students don't want their classmates to see their grade at the end, they just use a secret name. So in this method, using the one set of notes, the 4 students, they can discuss the questions together, but they're responsible for their own answers. So they may or may not agree with the group consensus. So in the upcoming roundtable discussion, how do you do note-taking where you work? So last example, presentations. And I'm thinking particularly of spoken presentations here. So many lectures, they have subtopics which are only mentioned briefly in passing. So let's go back one. In Seth's lecture, these were some of his subtopics. So for example, he had Immanuel Kant, René Descartes, Michael Faraday, even had a science fiction film, Ex Machina 2014. So in this activity, the students receive this as a Google Doc, and they have to sign up in a group of 4 or 5 students. And the 4 guidelines. So the first guideline is, in addition to the title slide with their names on, they're responsible for just one slide. Secondly, the slides must be in a logical order. Third, they mustn't repeat any information on their slides. And fourthly, they're encouraged to have bullet point notes on their phone, so they're not standing reading their sentences from the slide with their backs to the audience. Just go back here. So Scopus AI, they have a feature called Concept Map, which links topics together. So if you look particularly at the oranges on this concept map, so on the left there, you've got academic PowerPoint presentations. That's linked to presentation skills. Bottom right, surprise, surprise, engagement. So these are my references. I'll particularly draw your attention to Coxhead, which has had over 5,300 citations. And also to Seth's lecture, which in the last 2 months has been viewed over 43,000 times. So in conclusion, can student engagement be maintained in the post-COVID period? Yes, and bearing in mind those 4 arguments. So relevance of topics and their link to the assessments. Second, variety of materials and activities. Tools, possibly those small groups of students facing each other with their laptops and tablets. And fourthly, style, the different ways of traveling to Varanasi to wash in the Ganga.